Thank you for tuning in to the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast, where co-hosts Matt Bucher and Marty Wheeler interview motocross and off-road racing and riding icons to capture their stories and experiences for you. So buckle up those helmets, grab a handful of throttle, and get ready to listen to the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast. Before we get started with tonight's podcast, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. That way you stay up to date with all of our new episodes.
I want to thank my family for all their hard work, our staff, and most importantly, I want to thank our fans and riders. Please visit mxexpress.net.
We also want to show some love for a local nonprofit off-road club, the Toledo Trail Riders, and visit their website at toledotrailriders.org.
Matt, aren't we forgetting one?
Yes, please visit paulschlegelmovie.com to see how you can help Paul get his stories told in a documentary film for the whole world to enjoy forever.
I think we're done.
Okay, Marty, let's get after it. Now, it's on to the episode. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for joining us on the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Bucher, joined by my wise and enthusiastic co-host, Marty MX Express Wheeler. This is episode number 4. Before we get started, please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Toledo Track and Trail Podcast and give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast. Without further ado, let's put our heads down and pin it to win it and get to our guests. Tonight we are honored by a man that's Mr. MRA, Mr. Delta, Mr. Other Things, Mr. Pro Motocrosser, Mr. Barry Mayo. Barry, how you doing?
Thank you. Fine.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. Again, we this is episode 4. So again, I'm going to put the disclaimer out there. Marty probably would too, that, we're certainly not podcast experts at this point in time, but I would say, would you say, Marty, we're like a kind of a beginner or novice type of, if we had to compare it to the classes?
Well, you might be there at the beginner or novice. I'm still with the kids, but
Pee-wees.
Yeah, Pee-wees, exactly.
Pee-wees.
Yeah.
You Marty took the humble route. I was waiting for the I'm ready to lap the field kind of thing. So, but anyway, but no, Barry. In all seriousness, thanks for joining us tonight. And you're coming to us from down in Florida. Is that correct?
Yes, Alva, Florida. It's near Fort Myers.
As a young Barry Mayo, where did you grow up? What was your family life like as a kid? That kind of thing.
I've never grown up. No, I was born in New York City, but I was raised in a little city called Keego Harbor near Pontiac in Michigan. It's a land of the lakes, they call it, because there's lakes all around it. All the big lakes there in Michigan are right where Keego Harbor is. So
you're growing up in Michigan, which we won't hold it against you because we got the big Buckeye State behind you there. But no, I'm a Michigan Wolverine fan, so I probably just alienated half of our audience. But I hope not. I hope not.
Especially the Ohio State people.
Oh, yeah.
Michigan.
Oh, yeah. I tell you, and it's, that's a whole nother podcast about the agony of not beating them guys. I could go on and on about that, but we won't. We'll save that for a football podcast, which I know very little about. But anyway, but no. So you're growing up in this great state of Michigan, as they call it. And so at what point do you get your first bike? Is it your parents that get you involved? What was your early influence?
No, I got it on my own when I was like probably, I don't know, 12, 13. And then I think that first one was like a Whizzer 20-inch.
A Whizzer?
Yeah.
There's a gentleman that you know well in the state of Ohio here that used to sell Whizzers, Mr. Schlegel.
Yeah, he has a couple new ones. He bought some new ones.
I have seen them, and they are pretty neat bikes. By chance, did you get your Whizzer from him?
No.
Is there
I know. It was used when I got it. I used to buy and sell stuff even when I was a kid.
So you get this Whizzer, and what do we start doing? Will we start doing some motocross, or is it?
No, there wasn't anything like that then. That was in like 1955.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Barry, because I was going to ask you, and I thought, because you're 1,300 miles away, there's no way you could chase me down if I asked you what years that was. But I'm glad you threw that out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, you start riding this bike around, and
Yeah, just around the neighborhood and stuff, and in fields. And then I got a 26-inch one, sold the 20-inch, and sold the 26-inch. And I think I got a Vespa moped I had to fix up, and just all kinds of little motorized bikes I was working on when I was a young teenager, more or less.
So when did you start actually racing? About what year and how
Probably
long?
not until like 65. And it was on a Kawasaki 250 two-stroke twin-cylinder Samurai. And it was I rode it in Enduros, if you can believe that. I put universal tires on it, rode it in Enduros, and it was quite hilarious when I get in a deep mud hole, because back then the Enduros were really bad. They ran you through the worst stuff they possibly could find. And the exhaust would be bubbling up through the mud, just going blurp, blurp, blurp.
You spoke to my inkling, if you will, the enduro side. But so how many years did you do enduros? Was it
not long, just maybe a couple years. But I switched to a Ducati 250 Ducati Scrambler, they called it, 4-stroke single dirt bike. And then I did some enduros on that, but then I went to what they called then, it was called scrambles, but it was on like a motocross track. They were rough tracks. They didn't really had added jumps, just what jumps were there on the terrain. And mostly I raced it like Hadley, at Iron Mustangs, because that used to be the main scrambles track in Michigan. But it was basically still like a motocross track.
Gotcha. So who's influencing you? Who's taking you to the races? I mean, what age range?
Well,
I
was older then. I was 65. I was 20. So I was doing it myself.
Okay. So you're going.
Dick Robbins was a big influence, because I got the bikes from Robbins Sports Cycle. So him and I would go to all the races together. And then I jumped up, big jump in bikes, to a 250 Husqvarna.
Oh boy.
And I stayed on them for quite a few years. And that's when Dick and I, in like 65, 66, we got FIM Pro licenses. And we started going to the Interam races that Edison Dye and Torsten Holman put on. And they brought over the top 20 Europeans, and they raced against the top 20 Americans in the international class. And that's when we had to have 500, an open bike class, 360s and 400s and stuff.
So you're going as a 20-year-old man, young man, to these races. Now you're starting to kind of venture into motocross. And Marty, I know I'm going to hand it off to you, because he said the one word that you say about every other word, and that's Husqvarna. I don't know if you caught that, Marty, or not, but
250 two-stroke. They were great bikes. They were about the best motocross off-road bike you could buy back then. They were really good bikes. They weren't all that reliable or strong.
So, Matt, I really don't have anything more to say. He said it all. It was the best bike out there. I really don't have a whole lot to say. I can say, Husqvarna is the best. That's for me too. I still have them, and that's why I like them. But I'm glad he made the commercial for me.
Yeah.
Well, this concludes episode number 4. We've got the Barry said Husqvarna, and that's it. Marty's satisfied. We're good. So, but I knew this was coming as soon as you said Husqvarna, Barry. Yeah. I'm like, oh boy, here comes Marty. He's going to be licking his chops. But no, that's pretty neat. So, what year was it that you said that you're racing the Interams?
I think the first one was in '66. The real series. They had some. Europeans over here in 65, and we went to some of them races, but it really wasn't a inter-am series. And then Edison Dye and Torsten Holman in 66 started with the 20 Euros and 20 Americans. We called them Euros for short back then. And that was in 66. And the first one I went to, I remember, was LaRue, Ohio. And that was one of the first big off-road events in the country. And I've never seen that many people at a motocross. It was incredible. You could just hear all the people while you're racing your bike, the way they were screaming and yelling. It was like a roar over everything going on, just the people.
So this is a great segue into that early time, because you lived that time, you know,
Yeah.
and this is a perfect podcast in video, you know, type of content that I think, you know, the local area and really whoever's listening that's into motocross and in vintage bikes and that kind of thing would love to hear. So set this up, Barry. So you're going to this inter-am race in the late 60s. Do you have to qualify? What makes you?
No, they
go
just
there?
took the top 20 Americans and the top 20 Europeans to race the international class. I never raced the support class. That was 250s. And I think they did have qualifiers for that, because that's Brad Lackey and his buddy was a Tom Rapp. They rode CZs, and they rode the support class as a 250 class. I remember that. And they had their little doves on the handlebars. I don't know if you remember that or not.
So you're
Brad Lackey and Tom Rapp had a white dove taped to their handlebar crossbar and their CZs for peace. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That
It was
time,
pretty
yeah.
cool. But
That
they
time-
rode the support classes, and they beat everybody every time. And they would try to the officials off because they were both about the same speed, and they'd ride the whole moto together. Then when they got to the finish line, they'd do a wheelie side by side, exactly perfect, so the scorers didn't know who to score first. It was hilarious.
Oh
They were
my
doing it
gosh.
on purpose just to make people mad.
Oh my God. And there's, what would be your estimation of how many people are there watching this thing in the middle of Ohio
It was
somewhere?
more than a normal national now, a lot more. You know, they said it was in the 30 to 40,000 range, but it was just a complete flood of people everywhere. You couldn't see nothing but people in the whole thing.
So you're riding the 500 class. What type of, how did you hang? How'd you hang with the big guys?
No, none of the Americans did. It was a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, that first year, you get lapped 2 or 3 times. And it wasn't because they were going that much faster. You know, there was times I felt, well, I can hang with this guy, but then I'd make a mistake or something. But it was more that their perfection and their stamina, because it was 45-minute motos then. There was 3 45-minute motos.
3.
They had the stamina to do it. Us Americans were used to scrambles. You know, we didn't even race motocross until Hallman and Dye brought it to the United States. And the AMA didn't have anything to do with that then, because they didn't even know about motocross. It was just the FIM. And so we'd get lapped 2 or 3 times when we'd make mistakes and fall down or something. It's kind of pathetic. You know, we thought we were the top guys in the country, and we couldn't even stay on the same lap with them. But they were all mostly world champions, you know. So,
right. And they've been doing it a while, and they had the format, and I see some parallels. As you're talking and describing this, what this is reminding me of is exactly like the International 6 Days Enduro American team, how we really didn't have the format to practice. Now we got the sprint enduros, or the full gas sprint enduros, and now all of a sudden we're winning the 6 days, you know. And until you match them at their game and what they're practicing, like you said, you're just going to keep getting beat and keep getting lapped. So,
well, the next year we weren't so bad, you know. In fact, you know, it was only maybe the top 3 or 4 guys that would lap us, and it was only once. And there was times you actually could run with them. You know, you could actually feel like you were at least racing with them. You know, before the first year, it was like a joke. You know, it's like we were just completely deflated. Why are we even out here? There was one section there on the track that was a huge drop off, not a jump. You just came up to it, and it was so steep, they had railroad ties so it wouldn't wash away. So that when you went off it, it just dropped straight away. And there was like a little creek at the bottom, but they had a cutaway around the outside where the guys that didn't want to do the jump would go around the outside. And a lot of the people were going around the outside because it was a pretty scary drop away. You know, and the bikes back then had, you know, 4 inches of travel, maybe 6 in the front. Of course, they didn't, you know, those old Huskies only weighed like 190 pounds. So they actually handled pretty good, and they could take that kind of a jolt. But still, it took some courage to get up to going off this. It was like a 12-foot drop away. So it took a lot of courage just to get up to do it. You know, you just managed to jump that. Because to go around, you were losing like 7 or 8 seconds just in one little section. And even all the Europeans weren't doing it. So it wasn't just us, but the top guys were.
Yeah.
But we started doing it. So then that helped a lot. But Dick Robbins, my buddy, I don't know if you ever heard of him. He was on the first MX Donations team that our country had. Did you ever hear Dick Robbins?
No, Marty.
Yeah, he was the first, one of the first Americans at the first one we ever had. Him and Bob Grossi and Mark Blackwell. He was racing, and he was a few spots in front of me. Because he had raced like 10 years before I started. So, you know, he was better than me at that time. But I was getting there to where I could run with him. But he went off that drop off in front of me, and I really couldn't see him because he went off it and was landing. And all of a sudden, as I'm coming up to it, I hear a huge roar from the crowd, like, whoa. And it was like all 30, 40,000 people did it at once. And it was like deafening. That's all I could hear. And as I go off the jump, here's Dick laying on the ground with his front wheel someplace else. His bike doesn't even have a front wheel on it. So what happened when he went off that drop off, his forks came off the bottom legs and the wheel came off. And he's going through the air. He said he saw this wheel go by him and he thought, well, somebody lost their wheel. And then when he landed, he just started endoing because it was his wheel.
Oh my gosh. I can't. I think there's a Facebook meme of that somewhere. I mean, not that particular crash, but, you know, some kind of Photoshop kind of.
I've seen that, and I mentioned something about Dick doing that once, but that's a phony shot because the bike that's jumping couldn't even jump that high.
No,
no
chance.
Wheel goes by and the forks are still on the bike, and the wheel couldn't have fallen off the bike like that. The forks would have to fall off. You know? Oh my gosh. You know, these are great stories to hear. So, but then the next lap I come around and Dick's scrambling all around on the ground, picking up pieces. So after the motor, I go in, I said, Dick, what are you rushing all around grabbing parts for? He says, well, I didn't want Husky because Husky sponsored us. And he said, I didn't want the Team Husky people to see the forks because he had, you know, even back then we were doing weird stuff to lengthen the travel and the pipes and everything else. We really, you know, worked on our bikes to make them better. And he had taken ski poles and welded in his forks to make the forks more travel, to extend the forks. Well,
you
the
said
weld broke,
ski poles?
and the forks came apart, and that's why he lost his front wheel. He didn't want Husqvarna to see that.
You said ski poles? They put ski poles in?
Yeah, he used ski poles to extend his fork.
What in the world?
Well, we didn't know back then. You know, it was all low-tech stuff, you know. But it wasn't the pole that broke. He had somebody weld it to extend his fork, and the weld broke.
Oh, my gosh.
So he hid it from Husqvarna because he didn't want them to know he did that.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. That's hilarious. You know, isn't it amazing, though? And you're, you know, and I don't mean to date you on purpose, but, you know, in your time frame of racing, from then to now, isn't it just amazing the technology
Oh,
in
yes.
it's unbelievable. Could you imagine if you had your bike that you get, your current motocross bike, back in that day?
Oh, I know.
You would
Then
you
I'd
would
be
have been,
lapping the Europeans.
yeah, you would have been lapping the field, no question.
I know.
You know, that
So,
that that puts out a question. So, the Europeans were so so dominant. When did the Americans start coming up and started winning races? And what do you think the cause was? What happened to make that happen for them?
They just picked up the pace riding with them. But it took a long time. It took quite a while for the Americans to really start beating them. It's later on into the 70s. And then it wasn't many, they were still dominant.
well, I think Jim Pomeroy, if I remember right, was the first one to beat
Yeah.
the
He went to
Europeans.
Europe.
He did. Yeah, he went over
Yeah.
there. Yeah. But I think he was the first guy that kind of if I'm reading right, in through history, that he was the first guy everybody said, "Whoa, we can do it. We
Yeah.
can beat these guys, on their turf."
Yeah.
But no, that's pretty cool. You were part of that, part of that history there. What was your running those interams? What was your favorite track?
Oh, I don't. It's hard to say back then. That LaRue track wasn't really. It was in an open field. There weren't hills or anything. That's why they put that drop off in. It wasn't a real great track. It was okay. Uh, Elkhorn, Wisconsin was really nice. I really liked that track, an old track back then. In fact, it's had some off cambers and hills that they asphalted so they wouldn't wash away to keep them steep. It was quite unique. It's stuff we never saw before. But it was a good idea because off cambers, they get one rut where everybody's going and everybody goes there. Where when it was asphalted, you could go any place or go outside and cut across the top. It actually made it better.
Could you imagine if you were a racer, you're there at the track or maybe the week before and preparing, and all of a sudden you see an old asphalt truck pulling in, and be like, "Oh, they're gonna put a driveway in? No, they're gonna build a motocross track tonight." It's like, what? Asphalt on a motocross track?
And they had that same type of drop away. They had railroad ties built up so it wouldn't wash away, that you just shoot off it and drop off it.
Speaking of that track, I think, Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Paul in episode number 2, he mentioned racing in Wisconsin at that track, I believe. So you're racing, I'm assuming you're growing a family, that kind of thing. Tell us about your family.
Well, that's why I couldn't really pursue my pro career. I had to work, and I had 5 kids, home, everything else, where I had to work.
Right.
Couldn't take off and just run around. So
Well,
I really couldn't pursue a total pro career. It was a weekend only thing. And then sometimes forced to go to a pro race, I would have to work on Saturdays, and we would leave on Saturday night and drive all the way to the race, and then race on Sunday with almost no sleep. That went on for years.
I remember, when we were doing national enduros, and, I remember just similarly, you're racing all day. Of course, you're racing an enduro. So it's, 80, 100 miles. You're racing all day long on Sunday. You hop in the truck and hustle home. And sometimes it's a, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15 hour drive.
Yeah.
And then it's like you literally pull in at 5 a.m. on Monday, get in the shower, get cleaned up. And then in those days, the early part, it was get up and go to school, and it's like, man, those are real tough times, but, I wouldn't change it for the world. And I'm going to guess, Barry, that you wouldn't have changed it for the world either.
No, I wrote factory Husqvarnas for ISDTs too. And we used to do that. We'd leave and drive 10, 12 hours to the race and then have to turn around and drive right back home. Those were really grueling events.
So did you, when you when you were doing motocross, did you ever go back to off-road a little bit, or you
That's
just
what I mean,
strictly-
ISDTs
Okay.
for factory Husqvarna against Jack Penton and all those old guys, a whole group of them. I raced with all of them.
Did you actually get on the 6 days team for
Yeah.
Team USA?
I was on the team, but I didn't go to Europe. I
Okay.
just did it here.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we went to all of them.
So you probably did the
But
qualifying.
I rode too fast. All those guys, Penton and all of them, used to tell me I went too fast through the woods because I was usually behind them on the minute quite a ways, and I'd catch and pass all of them. Then when I got to the checkpoints, I'd stop and rest and eat the watermelon and oranges or whatever they had for us. And they'd all come up, Mayo, you're going too fast. You're going to break the bike.
Well, that's half the battle of an enduro. I mean, I've been blessed to qualify for 2 6 days in my life, and guess what? Mechanical problems were my gremlin. And you got to keep the bike going. Unless you're on a Husqvarna, Marty. Because they're invincible motorcycles apparently, and I don't know if you want to chime in on that, Marty, or not.
Well, what can I say? You probably better trade that beta in. But I was going to say, I don't think anybody's ever accused me of being too fast.
No, you're good, Marty. You're. It doesn't. As we all get older, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're first or last anymore. Just go out and have fun, right? You're having fun doing what you're doing, and Barry, you're a good testament to the sport of just keep riding, right?
Yeah.
There's no excuse why you shouldn't be.
No.
The comment though about I'm just old and slow, but I watch Barry ride, so there's no slow to Barry. So, and he's a lot older than I am. So, I think I was talking to Jason Flagerman today, and we were talking. Yeah, it's he said he was telling me, he said Barry's is the fastest old guy he's ever seen in his life. So, and I've seen Barry ride too, and I think my son Andrew one day, I can't remember, Andrew was out riding at the track with Barry, and Andrew's like, I can catch up. I keep up with him, and I think about 5 minutes later, I was like, okay, Andrew, what happened there? I think Barry lapped you again. So the young guys can't ride as fast as Barry. So.
Thank you. It's hard though at my age, It used to be easy. Now it's hard. I got to really commit to doing things and dedicate more to my conditioning and stuff to be able to do what I do now.
So my question is, actually, you talked about, of course, we're just gonna let it go saying that Husky is the best bike, but everybody has a particular bike. I mean, what definitely was your most favorite bike you ever had? All around, just greatest bike you just liked, other than a Husky.
Yeah, I don't have a Husky now, so back then Huskies were awesome.
You're right. You're right.
By far the best in the 60s and early 70s, even the mid 70s, I'd say.
Are you riding an orange Husky right now?
A what?
An orange
No, it's
Husky?
a green. I got a green one.
Oh no, you got a green one. Oh my word. Can we end this podcast right now?
This is a wrap, right?
It's a really hard question because every time I get a new bike, it's my favorite bike, It's that feeling with them. But my favorite bike of all time and the easiest, best handling, fastest lap time bike ever made is a 78 to 81 Mayo big bore. That's the best bike ever built. And there's the best one of all of them is the 81 AW 490. That bike is just incredible. I mean, if one of them set up properly right now, it'll still beat any modern bike with the same rider on it. They're still the best bike made, I think. In fact, that came up at one of my ARMA events a couple of years ago. Everybody in the stands and at the track were asking me they asked that same question. What's my favorite bike? What do you think the best bike ever was? And I told them that 81 490 Mako. And everybody, oh no, you're insane. Better than the new bikes? I said, yeah, better than the new bikes. I said, no way. That old bike can't keep. That's what, 35 years old then? It can't keep up with no new bike. I said, well, yes, it can. And if I had one, I'd go out there and show you. But there was two guys there. On like, one was a 79, one was a 80, and they were brothers. I can't remember his name now. And they were riding these, and they weren't even 490s or 440s. They were 400s because they didn't like too much power. They liked the 400. Well, the one brother rode the modern bike class in the 30 plus, and he rode it in the 40 plus too. He won every moto he raced against all the modern bikes. A 1979 or 80 Mako. After he did that, I went up to those guys and said, see what I told you?
I was in Yuma at the dunes one time, and we were out, and there was they had a drag car. You know, it was a sand car there. They had a guy was running a Honda. I don't know, had a 650 or 750 4-cylinder. You know, that they put on a 3-wheeler, and they were out sand dragging, and it was so funny because somebody, I don't remember if you remember, Mako had a kit that you could make a 3-wheeler out of it. Oh, and so they had that 490 out there, and it was funny because he went out there and he was dragging with his car and this Honda, you know, 650, whatever it was, and he was blowing the doors off them. And then he turned around and they had the hill climb, and he would wait till they got about a quarter way up the hill, and he would take off with that 490 3-wheeler, and he would beat him to the top of the hill climb. So,
but it wasn't the outright power of those bikes; it was the way they applied the power. It was. They were so easy to ride. I mean, you could just turn them on in the middle of the turn, and they would track through the turn, wheelie out of the turn, down the straightaway. It was like they had artificial intelligence, and they did what you thought you wanted to do before you could even make it do it. You would just think, well, I want to go over here to an inside line, and you'd be over there already accelerating out of the turn. They were just incredible the way they handled. And the suspension, you know, they had twin shocks, but it was flawless. You know, the ones I had O'Lean's shocks on them, you know, modified, and I would trick out the forks a little bit, and they worked if not better than a modern bike. And they weren't heavy, you know, they're like 215 pounds or something, than a 490 with perfect power, unbelievable. And they had little problems that were kind of touchy, but if you knew how to take care of them, they were never a problem. My 81 490, I used to keep track of my motos, and I had over 1,100 motos on it and never had a DNF. Never.
Wow. That's impressive.
And I rode it from 81 to 86 against the more modern bikes with single shocks, and nobody could keep up with me on that bike. So that's my favorite bike of all time. 81 AW. AW stole was for Adolf Viel. If you pronounce it in German, the W is like a V.
Well, I tell you, Barry, the vintage guys and gals watching this podcast, hopefully there's more than 15 of them, right, Marty? That's always our goal. We got to get 15 people to watch. You know, are going to eat that up because guys like my dad, they love hearing that kind of stuff, and they got vintage bikes and all that kind of thing. Do you still have a Mako in the garage anywhere?
I don't have one. It's too much for me to take care of my one bike, Yeah. Because I'm so busy all the time. I just have my one 450 KX. That's it.
So jumping into busy, part of the reason we started this podcast, the main reason was because of this coronavirus, and really the whole shutdown of, public trail riding, tracks like yourself and Marty's, and, we had Jeff Bierbauer on a couple weeks ago. And what is your current situation? And just for the audience that doesn't know, you are the operator of MRA, and you operate Delta Motorsports Park in Delta, Ohio. And what is your current situation out there? You're obviously in Florida, but what is your planning and kind of thought process with all this craziness?
It's kind of really got me distressed because I don't know what I can do, because, you know, I've been in contact with the state and the health department and the county up there, and the last thing I got from them is we can't run. Michigan, who they said Whitmer is super strict and a Nazi and all that, she's evidently letting them run. I don't know, but or they're just running without permission. But Michigan tracks are running and Ohio tracks can't. In fact, Scott Plessinger's track was shut down twice, I heard already.
It's interesting because I saw something posted the other day, and you know, just so the audience knows, this is recorded on May 6th, 2020. So by the time, you know, the audience sees this episode, things could change. And that's, you know, in my world and, you know, the healthcare world, I mean, we were literally going day by day with changes of what we had to do and that kind of thing. So it's definitely interesting times, but, you know, it's an inspiration to at least talk about this, because I think history is going to look back and go, wow. You know, I was telling somebody the other day at work, I said, you know, I was born in 82, but as a young kid, you know, all we heard was, oh, the winter of 78 or the blizzard of 78. And it's like, when is the Facebook meme, you know, blizzard of 78? Yeah, that's cute. When is that going to pop up on Facebook, you know, because this is a whole nother monster. How long have you operated out there at Delta?
27 years. And before that, I had Milan for 35 years. So.
And then Barry, now you also was in with, I think, Log Road.
Yeah, I brought Log Road back to life. In other words, we were out there one day. I forget where we were driving. I think we might have been driving to Redbud. And I was on 12. And I said, you know, there used to be a track down this road. Let's go see if we can find it. So I went down Log Road and found it, but it was all grown over. You could barely see the gate or the fence. And I started asking the neighbors who owned the property, and it was an old couple down just as you go into Bronson. So I went and talked to them, and we got it reopened. That's how that came back to life. And then I did the same thing with Irish Hills also.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I thought it was closed down for many years. I reopened that also.
Now, did you start Milan? Was there a motocross track there when you went there, or
Where?
did you at Milan at the?
No, there was a track there, and the owners, Cliff and Barb Riley, ran it as a motocross track, and they put in a flat track also. They had a flat track there, but the biggest crowd they ever got in their history was like 60-some racers, and they were just getting sick of doing it and not really making any money. They also did, they owned the drag strip also. So they just leased it to me, and I started doing it. And within a few months, we were getting huge crowds. The place was packed every Friday for probably 25, 26 years.
Well, you said, I think you made a comment about that they weren't making any money. I haven't figured out how to make money either in a dirt bike at the track, but with that being said, people don't realize
a podcast
yeah. But it's funny because people don't realize the amount of work it goes into a track to keep it operating and keep it going. And then you had two at the same time, so that was even tougher.
Because I had Log Road in Milan for a lot of years too, and that was really hard because I didn't have equipment for both places. So every Friday night when we got done, we'd have to haul all the equipment to Log Road. And that's quite a haul.
I was going to say that Milan to Log Road is definitely a little bit of a trip there. But
and then in between Milan and Log Road, we had some races on some Sundays at Irish Hills. So that was really a job.
Yeah.
But even though Milan and Delta aren't that far apart, it was still 4 events a week.
Yes.
And that's like, you need 200 hours or more to do that. It was way too exhausting. It's like when I turned 70, I couldn't do it anymore.
Turned 70. I'm not quite 70, and I'm thinking, okay, what am I doing? So what was the drive? What made you want to keep going? Because I say, the crowds have changed over the years. You know, it used to be, you know, like I said, big crowds, and it sort of dropped off a little bit, then it came back a little bit, and now we're seeing maybe a little bit more growth. What was the drive for you to keep these tracks going?
Well, it's just my passion. You know, motocross is, you know, I care more about motocross than just about anything. And it's like, I don't know, it's like a family, the motocross people. You know, it's like you can go any place in the world, and when you meet other motocross people, it's like you've known them your whole life. You know what I mean? You become instant friends.
I'm glad you said that, because, you know, it's the same thing. You pull into a gas station, somebody's got a motocross bike in the truck, and you getting fuel, and the first thing you do is, you know, hey, who are you, and where are you at, where are you riding, and that kind of stuff. But I'm glad you said that about the passion, though, because that's really, you know, that's the only thing. Because, like I said, there's not the money these days, you know, is not here anymore. You know, it's not. You got to try to make it feasible for the families to get in and ride. So you got to try to keep your costs down. And, you know, what a dozer costs today does, you know, it's not like what it used to cost before. Or you're having a lot more equipment, and of course, you know, there's a lot more work to be done. And so you definitely, you know, for the years, you know, so I said, now, was it the mid 90s that you started in Delta?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember the exact time, but
Because I know we started as a
probably
family.
about 10 years after we were at Milan. Yeah, so that's probably about right.
That's good. We started as a family. We started riding in the early 2000s with you guys there. The boys did. So I know we came in, you know, had a good time. There was, you know, lots of things going on. Stars of Tomorrow. You know, a lot of the stuff going on was, you know, such a great place out there. And so, you know, like I say, it's interesting to know. I think before we delve into some history of Delta, I did hear you talk about Florida. You're down in Florida now. Someone was telling me that they saw a plaque or something like that you won some series down in Florida.
I used to ride all the Winter Am series and the Olympics every year for probably 20 years.
Okay.
And I've won 2 classes at the Olympics at least 20 times.
That's
Wow.
It's really hard to do. One year I actually won 3 classes, but I think I was 52 or 53. So I was riding the 30 plus, the 40 plus, and the 50 plus.
Did you ever do Loretta's, Barry?
Twice, but I had stupid bike problems. I ended up a second and a third the 2 times I went. And it was just too much trouble for me. But the Winter Olympics, I actually built the tracks and helped run the events too. You know, Jerry West was the owner of it. And I actually did most of the track work. I ran the people watering the track, the flaggers. So, but when I rode the Olympics, it was 4 events. We started out with a TT race, then a Supercross, then the motocross, and then a GP, they called it, which was like a hare scrambles. So we had 4 events back then. And I was the one year, then I got a plaque on my wall there from Kawasaki. Kawasaki made up this big special plaque for me because I was the only one that won 2 classes out of 9,800 entries.
9,800.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it used to be 4 events, so they counted every event. It was 9,800 entries. I was the only one out of all of them that won 2 classes. But that year, I actually won 3 classes. But what had happened was in the GP race, they have to combine classes. So they had already combined the 30 and the 50 plus. So I was riding both classes in one race. Well, I won the overall. I beat everybody, all the 30s and all the 50s. But all the 30-year-old guys complained that I shouldn't have got scored in their class because somehow they thought I wasn't racing against them, that I was racing with the 50 guys. And the promoters told him, what are you, crazy? He was riding against everybody on the same start in the same race. He beat all of you. Why shouldn't we score him? So they were throwing a big hubbub. Everybody was upset, all the 30-year-old guys, not the 50-year-old guys. So I finally told him, I said, listen, Linda, don't even worry about it. Just take me out of the GP race. I'm not going to let them scream and yell and fight. So I should have won 3 classes that year, but I told them take me out. But I still ended up I got 2 firsts in the 50 and 40, and I ended up 5th or something in 30 plus because they pulled me out of the GP race.
You would have had all 3, but them damn vet riders, I tell you, them 30-year-olds are a pain in the neck, aren't they, Marty?
Well, in I think it was, when was that? 97, I believe it was, when I was 52. I rode the 30 and the 40 plus. And I won every moto in the 40 plus for the whole Winter Amp series. That was at 7 different tracks. And I won every moto in the 30 plus for the whole Winter series. And on the last moto of the year, Jerry, the owner, had put in this wall jump. That was before they had wall jumps like they do now, but he had put it in. And it was in a high-speed section of the turn by the bleachers. And I told him, Jerry, why'd you put this jump in? He goes, I'm slowing them down so they don't run off the track and go through the fence into the bleachers. But nobody ever did that because there was a bank of dirt before the fence anyways. It would be impossible to do that. But he said that's why he did it. I said, Jerry, well, somebody's going to get hurt there. He goes, oh, no, they have to slow down. I said, well, what if they don't slow down? He says, well, to slow down. I said, yeah, but what if somebody behind me don't slow down and lands on me? He said, oh, that won't happen. That won't happen. Well, the first moto I won. The second moto, I was in the lead. A guy hit that jump out of control and landed on top of me.
Oh, boy.
In first place. So it dislocated my hip. I've never been in that much pain in my life. I'm laying on the ground. The medics are there trying to put me on the backboard. My foot is turned around backwards. My toe is pointed backwards because my hip dislocated. So I'm screaming and yelling at them to pick me up. And they didn't want to. And I'm just screaming my head off. I said, no, I know how to get it back in because my shoulder used to dislocate. And I would just lean over and let it hang and swing it. And it would just roll back around and pop in. And I thought, well, I can do that with my leg. So they finally picked me up. And I did that. I swung my leg and the weight of the boot kind of pulled it out. And I just watched my foot come around and straighten out and click right back into place. And then it hurt so bad, I couldn't start my bike. It was the most pain I've ever been in. So a friend of mine started it for me that was there watching. And I took off, way back, dead last place by that time. And I could hear the announcer, the whole moto, Mayo's got to catch up to 10th to win the series. He needs a 10th and he's in 25th now. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm not going to catch anybody. I couldn't sit down. I had to stand up the whole moto. I could not sit down because my hip wouldn't bend to let me sit down. And, the moto went on and I could hear him announcing, Mayo's in 12th, Mayo's in 11th. I said, oh man, one more place, I can get it. And I got up to 10th and I'm trying to relax a little bit, but if I slowed down much, it made it worse, especially standing up all the time. And so I ended up 9th in the moto and I won the series. But I've won the Winter Am series and the Olympics in 2 classes probably 20 times at least.
Wow. So that was your Rocky moment, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I was 52 and racing the 30-year-olds too, and won all but one moto in the whole series.
It kind of brings me up to I don't know if it's a question or a statement or a point or, a talking point, but racing dirt bikes or ATVs or whatever, isn't it the toughest sport out there? I mean, honestly,
I think so.
I mean, what, nothing against the stick and balls, but what you just described, that you don't see that happen on Monday Night Football. I mean, you do. I mean, I'm not saying the guys aren't tough or girls aren't tough that play the the stick and ball sports, but honest to goodness, how many times you watch a Supercross or motocross and them guys just smack the ground and they get up and they just keep going. And we've all done it. We've all done it.
Well, I broke my collarbone and got up and finished the moto more than once, quite a few times, in fact. And then go out on the dozer or the tractor and redo the track that night.
Well, one of his other little secrets is I think he's got some bionic parts in him. I think how many knees have you had replaced there?
Just 2.
Just two. Yeah, just
They
two.
did it twice in both knees right off the bat because they didn't get it right though. So you can say 4.
Yeah. Apparently the parts weren't the new bionic parts wasn't good enough. But yeah. So he's got some knee replacement. He's been hit by electricity. He took a hit from electricity there too. A while ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had to get
It should have
recharged.
killed me, they said, but I don't know.
Well, apparently it just recharged him. Apparently, it just gave him a little bit more juice.
What happened? What happened with that? You got to share the details on that.
I was putting a speaker up on a pole behind the snack bar there, and I was out of the way of the electricity. But the lift I was on had metal legs, so it was grounded to the ground, and it was all metal too. So I'm just sitting there putting the speaker up, and all of a sudden, and I go out. You know, I turned to rubber. I was like rubber. Couldn't even stand up. And then, like, I don't know how long it was. I was in a clump in the basket, you know. I woke up, could barely move my hands or arms, and finally got the lift down. And the person was there, said he saw the electricity jump from the main line over to me, where I was leaning up against the metal cage, and went right into the back of right above my butt on the right side, and it came out my hand where I was holding the speaker. And my hand looked like a bomb went off in it. It just exploded my hand. There was just blood and pulp and everything everywhere. So,
wow. Well,
so it went right through my whole body, through my heart and everything, and out my hand. And somehow I lived.
They didn't have to resuscitate you?
No.
Oh my gosh. Well,
He got up.
Go ahead, Marty.
He got up and raced. He got up and raced that night and won his class.
Well, Barry, if you don't believe in guardian angels, you probably should. Well, thank God you survived and you're with us.
Well, I give it to my diet. I've been a vegan for 35 years, so I think that has a lot to do with it.
Eating right and good exercise.
Yeah. He's been. What year did you start riding or racing?
Like 65.
You've literally been electric since 65.
Yeah.
That's a dad joke. See, when you get kids, I know we've all done it. You know, you tell these my boys and my wife, I feel sorry for them. They just roll their eyes at me now, like, oh my gosh, where did you come up with that? I'm like, I don't know. It just comes out. I'm sorry. I apologize in advance. But Barry, you know, I see Marty's got the green screen behind him and looking at Delta, and certainly I have fond memories as a young lad racing out there, and I remember, you know, coming out to help, you know, I think before you guys were there, but we'd come out and pick up litter, and, you know, so very, very fond memories of Delta and doing the Ironmans and, you know, all this stuff out there. Actually, I broke my leg out there when I was 15, and another local legend, Radar, I remember he hauled me back to the truck there, and Radar said, your foot's going the wrong way. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to go get that looked at. But, of course, my dad says, you know, you got to wait for the trophies. You know, you can't go to the ER quite yet. You got to wait for the trophy presentation. But anyway, but no, I really have fond memories of racing there and Milan too. And I know a lot of guys and gals around the area do. It's kind of like we all get our start there, you know, for those that do kind of venture out into the world a little bit. But you learn a lot of lessons, you know, riding there and negotiating the terrain there. But in your estimation, who is the fastest guy or girl that you've ever seen race your track?
Well,
tough question. This has been a tough one for some.
It's actually an easy question. I know who it is easily, but it's subjective question, and probably a lot of people aren't going to agree because there's been so many motocross stars since the 70s, you know. But I've trained and helped some of the top pro racers in the world, you know, and they've went right up to the top of the pro classes. won races, won series, everything. And I've raced with the fastest racers in the world, and professional and amateur, but none of them, even racing with them or watching them, ever gave me this feeling that I could not keep up with them. You know what I mean? Felt like I could go out there and go that speed, you know, except for a few, not many, 2 or 3 maybe. And one of them was Alan King. Do you ever remember him?
No, never.
He was
heard
a
of him.
top pro racer. He's won zillions of nationals. He's a factory Suzuki rider. And the only reason he didn't win the championship 3 or 4 years in a row is because his Suzukis kept breaking, his factory bikes. Otherwise, because he won most of the races every year he raced against Bailey and Glover and all them guys. But I trained him from the day he got his first bike, an RM125. So I actually knew, and he rode just like I do. He had the same exact style because I trained him from his first motorcycle. So I actually thought with him, I could maybe run his pace if I really pushed it. But the one guy that could go by me like I was going backwards, and I trained him also, and I had no hope, no chance in hell of keeping up with him. He was so fast. I mean, if you watched him race or ever saw him race, he could not make the bike go fast enough between 2 points on the track. 500s even, 490s. He was just insane fast. And his name's Frank Shapansky. I don't know if you ever heard of him. And he's from Milan. And he still lives in the same house he grew up in. He bought it from his dad. And he's still a super good friend of mine. We talk 2-3 times a week still right now. And he was just incredible, absolutely incredible. And actually, I can say it objectively because I watched him when he was 15, beat all the fastest riders in the world at Red Bull. So he was the fastest rider ever on a motocross bike. So nice. I'm sure of that. Because he could pass Alan King and just pull away from him. Jeff Stanton couldn't keep him in sight. Jeff Stanton could not even see him on the track. He could go, Jeff was maybe 2 or 3 years older than Frank. So when Frank was racing Jeff, he was 14 or 15. Jeff was 17 or 18. He could go by Jeff and just disappear. It was insane how fast he was.
So going to Delta with all the best in Midwest that you put on and the Stars of Tomorrow, I remember coming out and watching them races and, as a young lad and, getting the keys to the truck and, jumping out there. It was like a weekend of excitement. Who is the fastest, again, guy or girl that we want to be fair, that you put your eyes on somebody at Delta and went,
Delta.
Wow.
Matt Maximoff.
Delta. Yeah.
Matt Maximoff was the fastest. And he was one of the fastest riders in the world too, but in his head, he couldn't put it together.
Yeah.
It was just in his head. Because he would go to a pro race and turn fast lap time against McGrath, Carmichael, everybody. But yet when he got on the track and raced with them, he would get out in front of him. He'd get the whole shot, get out in front of him. And he's not riding a works bike. He's got his stock Suzuki RM250. And he'd get out in front of him, and then he'd stay there and run their pace, but then he'd start losing paces, And not horrible. He'd still end up 5th or 6th. And I'd say, Matt, why are you doing this? And he told me what I knew. It's what all these guys do that don't have that self-confidence is, well, I get out there with them, and I know I can race with them. I know I can run that pace or faster, but there's something in me that tells me I can't beat these guys. I just can't beat them because it's Ricky Carmichael or Jeremy McGrath. And that's what would kill him. That was what did him in.
I remember watching him on ESPN2 and qualifying. And I actually, I believe I raced against him at an Ironman once. Yeah. And raced again. I think he tried a National Enduro once, the Mosquito Classic, I think. And I don't think he liked the National Enduro too much, but anyway, getting back to Delta, so you've operated a long time, and and that kind of thing. And do you have any plans for this year? Are you gonna, doing your Saturday night?
Up in the air. Well, we
Yeah.
want to do Saturday nights and a Sunday motocross this year, I think, and then an iron maybe once a month. But are they going to let us race? I don't know.
Too many questions, or too many questions unanswered, I think, at this point in time. But that's your plan. This, assuming this all kind of we all get reinstated, if you will, back to normal society. That's your plan for this 2020 season.
Yeah, that's what I'm planning. Every Saturday night, like usual, and every Sunday, I want to do a Sunday motocross to see how that works. Because then the people can camp out Saturday night and have another motocross on Sunday.
I was going to mention, I think, Matt, you said a lot of people got their start there. And Barry, helped Andrew and Sean as they were coming up. And Andrew, really hadn't ridden any bikes or anything since before we moved here, other than just riding some stuff, small stuff. So when he picked up his little 230 Honda, he went out and started riding with Barry. Barry showed him the ropes a little bit out there, and Andrew, was able to, win the beginners class, non-jumping beginners class out there, and it was so exciting. And then as they moved up, Barry's installed some recluses in our bikes and did some other stuff, and being talking about wrenching, I think another piece to your I don't know if you want a list of things you do, is you're also doing suspension. Can you tell us a little bit about your suspension, Barry?
I stay really busy with it. Everybody's I do loves it, and they tell their friends, and most of my business comes from recommendations from the customer. And I've never had an unhappy customer the whole time. But I've been doing, I didn't really do it a lot until the last 7 or 8 years, but I've been doing it for 50 years. Like I said, me and Dick Robbins did our suspensions on our 1965 bikes, always modifying something to make it better.
You don't bring back the ski poles, the technology of the ski poles, Barry?
Since then.
Well, I've done a little suspension work too, but back in our day, we were cutting PVC and we were putting them in on top of the springs and in front of the forks to make them stiffer and stuff. And we didn't have the money to work on that. But I got to believe that, one of the things that's so underestimated when people grab a bike is the suspension, because everybody gets a bike, they get from the dealer, and the tires have got 20 pounds of air in them, and nobody's ever set anything up, and they go out there and ride. And it's just amazing to watch, once somebody actually stops for a minute and has the bike set up, not even necessarily having the suspension done, but even just set it up to ride it, how much the bike handles different and rides different. And then you put them onto something, like having suspension done, then all of a sudden, like, wow, why didn't I do this right off the bat? So it's a big deal.
It's the most important thing on the bike. I've had people down here in Florida for the last 3 years, because I go to the tracks here. I have time to talk to people and check their bikes out, because as soon as I get to the track, I have to spend my first hour and a half or 2 hours just setting people sag or clickers, because I don't charge them. I just do it for them. Mm-hmm. And I've had this winter alone at least 30 jobs, just the 30 jobs that somebody rode a bike like they have that I had done. And they might have had somebody else do their suspension, but then they rode one that I did. They take their bike, as soon as they come off with the track with the one I did, they take their bike and load it up and leave. They say they can't ride it anymore. And then they bring it to me. And probably 7 or 8 of those times, they give me the bike to take home with me right from the track, because mine is so much better than either the stock one or the one they had done someplace else too. And that's comparing them, apples to apples, back to back on the same track. And the difference is so huge, they won't even ride their bike again.
Well, how many, Barry, how many people have you seen get hurt because their suspension's not set up? It's just,
all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Guys even. I told a guy about the last time I rode, maybe 7 weeks ago, he was at the track and his bike's kicking him off every jump, kicking him. I said, dude, you got to do something about that bike. You're going to hurt yourself. He goes, oh, I will. I said, well, you need to bring it to me or take it someplace because the shock's not even working. It's garbage. And I even turned the rebound all the way in for him. Still didn't do nothing. He goes out the very next session and Endo's on the biggest jump on the track and goes to the hospital. So it's dangerous if it's not right.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, hey, real quick, I've got a picture of the Delta track in the back here. I was kidding you a little bit earlier. I thought this is somewhere down in Florida. I see the water, so I thought maybe that was the bay or something there. But so how long is your motocross track less the Ironman section?
I don't know the distance, but it's right around 2 minutes.
2 minutes, right?
It's about the same size as any day track, if not a little bigger.
Okay, and then I think let's see, go over this way. Yep, somewhere over there. We see some trails out through the back up closer to the reservoir, and so that's a section you run during the Ironman, along with the woods.
Yeah, well, we run everything for the Ironman, everything that's out there, the whole,
including the track.
Yeah. That's for the Ironman. But if I'm going to have a motocross this year, I want to run a lot of that sand section out at the west end, hooked to the motocross, the night track. So it'll probably be like a 2.5, 3 minute lap for the Sunday motocross.
Oh, wow. That sounds like
and it'll be sand out there at the west end, like it is now. Most of the night track, there's berms and ruts in every turn, even on the night track.
Right. I know. So you've been there since the 90s. I think we were talked about, the crowds that have come and gone through, a lot of different places. And I somewhere I thought I saw a stat about Delta and one other racetrack is really the only two tracks in the United States that are still operating since maybe the 60s? Did I see
1970. Delta's been there since 70, so this is the 51st year.
And what's the other? There's one more track. Was it out in California or someplace that's been around as long as Delta?
I remember.
I just
no, it could have been Unadilla.
I saw it. It's been a while ago, but it was funny because I heard Delta, because I sort of phased everything else out when I heard that. Okay, the longest track, one of the tracks that's been around the longest, and I heard Delta, and I forgot. I didn't listen to the rest of it, but I believe there's only one other track that's actually been around as long as Delta. And I know we could probably do a whole nother series about Delta, how long it's been there, and the racers, and all the races, the flat track, and all that kind of stuff there.
The Trans Am races there that was the same thing, the top 20 Europeans, top 20 Americans, and I raced those also in the 500 class with Joe Robert, DeCoster, Heike Mikkola, all of them.
And it's just so exciting to know that in Delta, Ohio, I mean, a lot of times growing up, when you think of motocross, you think of bike stuff, you think of California, because that just seemed like that was, surfing and dirt bikes, and that kind of stuff, and in some places like that. But then when you hear about all the things, like you said, there's a couple of tracks around here that you mentioned that you raced way back when, and it's just amazing on the the amount of history here in Ohio that's got amazing races. But I was going to ask you, like I said, the crowds have come and gone in cycles of out there. What do you think drives, for a while it's really going good, and the energy's there, the people are there, then all of a sudden it sort of drops away, and then it finally comes back again. And I think it seems like we're sort of maybe on an uptick a little bit, or had been on an uptick a little bit, about seeing people coming to the tracks and getting back into racing. Because I remember back when we first started going to Delta, all the stands were packed and full, and I had to park all the way down almost to the main road getting in to get into there. But what do you think's driving this cycle of the up and down?
I don't know. I don't know what it could be, but actually, for us, Milan stayed really good until the economic turned down for 26, 27 years. I mean, Milan, there was 2,000 to 3,000 people there every Friday night. It was just incredible. The police had to direct traffic out on Plank Road and our road. It was incredible. If you count the number of people that went to Delta, it's the most highly attended motocross track in history. It's nobody, or to Milan, because no track had those kind of crowds every single Friday night, once a week, or all year long. It was just insane how busy Milan was. But then with the big crash there, everything started dropping and it's never come back. And Delta, when we got it was doing great. Like you said, the stands were full. I had to put a fence like maybe 8 feet back from the fences there now so people could stand at the fence and the cars wouldn't park up against the fence at Delta. That's how many people were coming there. And that went on too until the crash. And then after the crash, it dropped way off and it's never come back.
Well, hopefully we'll see, hopefully we see, the number of motorcycles, manufacturers out there are building some bikes are pretty, I believe are pretty good bikes out there. So hopefully maybe something will turn around a little bit. We'll start seeing some more people ride. I know on our side, you do too. You have a really nice kids track over there. So, that's got a pretty good draw in itself for the kids to go out there and actually be able to compete, on a track that's built for them. So that's a good thing. And, on my side where we're seeing a lot of young kids coming up, and that's what we've been trying to promote mostly. So hopefully a new breed of kids is coming up, and guys and girls. We've been seeing a lot of girls ride too. So hopefully maybe, they're getting around to coming back and riding a little bit more dirt bike stuff.
Yeah, but after this thing now, the economy's really bad. So I don't see it coming back this year.
Let's hope that something's going to fall in our favor here in the next few weeks, and we'll be able to do that. But I think I see, man. I was trying to think if I had anything. I wanted to give a shout out to Tammy Siebenauer. She gave me some scoop on you there, so I talked to her a little bit today, and she had told me a little bit about some of your trophies and some stuff out there. I know she's been out there and she does a lot of pictures, so I get to see. She does a lot of pictures and posts them on Facebook and stuff. So anybody that wants to see what the Delta track looks like, just tune in there, because she's usually got some great pictures of starts and bikes and stuff like that. So that's always exciting to see. And I know there's, like I say, the flaggerments and stuff like that are out there. And I always see a lot of things going on out there. So, but you just real quick for people out there, Delta, Ohio, you're on, was it 7.1?
7-2.
7-2. You race every Saturday night under the lights. The only track around here that's got lights, right? I don't think anybody else has any lights, right? Or does
Milan put up some temporary lights last year, but I don't think it worked very good. A lot of people complained about it.
Yeah, we put on the race at the fairgrounds last year. We ended up at the end, had a few lights, and we would try to do everything, but it shines right in people's eyes, and it's tough lighting use. But as far as regular lights, you've got the lights, you get the race on, and then Sundays, I know it changes a little bit as things change throughout the year and how people come, but you're doing an Ironman. You've been doing an Ironman every Sunday for a long time. And you're going to have some version of that this year coming up.
Yeah.
So you have the Ironman.
I think I'm going to try it like once a month, because people are always saying they can't come every week. And then when you set dates for it, then they say, well, we can't come that day, we're going here. But you can't, everybody has to understand you can't have a day just for that one person.
Right. It's really tough, but that's a 1 hour race. Is that correct? Yeah, and that's takes you into the sand, takes you on the motocross track, takes you works you pretty hard in that hour there. And then you said you're planning on doing possibly some racing on Sunday. What the plans are if everything comes out. So you have some racing going on Sunday. So really for a long weekend, that's a great. I know you guys got people that stay there, campers and that kind of stuff. So looks pretty good. And then anything else new going on with? Actually, I apologize. I haven't been out there in a bit. My honeydew list has been pretty good, so I don't usually get a chance. I know the boys try to sneak out there every once in a while throughout the year, and when they've got some time, now they've got jobs that they got to work for themselves and make money, so it's tough to get out there as much. But but we appreciate, I do appreciate you. I know my kids appreciate, you being out there, and, because they're able to start. I mean, that's where they actually started riding dirt bikes, was at Delta. So I appreciate you having that out there for them. And I know they probably want me to pass on too, that they really appreciate you being out there putting on that race too.
One last question for you, Barry. What is your greatest accomplishment, whether it's racing, riding, your children? What's if you as the chapter closes and we think of Barry, what do you want to be remembered for?
It's hard to say. My passion's motocross, so probably motocross. I've ran motocross tracks for over 40 years successfully, so that's pretty hard to do. I mean, how many people work a job 40 years? Actually, it's been 50 years, but for
who's counting?
Huh?
I say, yeah, but who's counting? Anything after 30 or 40 years, you lost me. That's getting more than I've been alive.
And like I said, Milan is the highest attended motocross track any place in the world, in history. I mean, it's talking in the 35 years I had it, it's well over 1.5 million people has been through there. So there's no other track you could even think of having that many people. And in its heyday, you guys probably don't remember, but you could barely walk through the pits. It was so packed. It was just ridiculous. And that went on, like I said, for 27 or more years at Milan. So it was pretty incredible. And, most of the top racers in the world, in the country have been there. Even, celebrities used to come there just so Eminem used to come there every week just to watch the races.
Did you really?
Yeah. So, it's actually a famous place, and Delta was too. Delta was like that the first, at least, I'd say 20 years we had it. Delta was packed. The stands were packed. The fence line was packed. Qualifiers in almost every class. So I'm pretty proud of being able to do that. And other tracks too. I opened a track in Canada that became really successful, in Leamington, Ontario, the tomato capital of the world. And so I've done quite a few things with motocross. I've opened tracks in South America. Of course, I'm proud of my kids and my family. But...
Well, at the end of the day, you can hang your hat on it, and you've certainly earned it. And we want to, on behalf of Marty and I, we want to thank you for joining us tonight, and hopefully our audience will, the 15 people that watch, will. Actually, I think we're getting a little uptick there, Marty, on the YouTube. But
we getting 17?
Yeah, 18, I think.
Oh, okay, we're on a roll.
But actually, just so our audience knows, we are, Marty and I have been trying to upgrade our equipment and do some things, but right now is a very popular time to sit at home and webcast and do live streaming. So the equipment is not necessarily available on the market right this moment. So as the show goes on and we keep going, certainly we want to upgrade our equipment. And in Barry, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you or contact MRA, how do they go ahead and do that?
Facebook's the easiest, I guess. And we have the race site, racedelta.com. But that's it. Facebook, Messenger.
Well, that's good to know. So the audience knows if they got a question, they can just find you on Facebook and
there's a Delta Raceway Facebook page. RaceDelta.com is the website.
Okay. Well, definitely, give them a like over there and tune into, we'll definitely have you back on, Barry, as the season goes on, and hopefully this podcast will continue to bring folks in like yourself. And okay, so we again want to thank our guest, Barry Mayo, for joining us on the Toledo Track and Trail podcast. We also want to thank our sponsor, Align, for supporting us along the way. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Toledo Track and Trail podcast. And don't forget to hit that bell and give us a thumbs up. Also, you can find us at Facebook at facebook.com/the Toledo Track and Trail podcast. If you have questions, comments, ideas, or guests you want to listen to, we'd love to hear from you. So please contact us at ToledoTrackandTrail@gmail.com. Until next time, we hope you and your family partakes in the splendidness and pure enjoyment of motocross and off-road racing and riding. Remember to stay on the track or trail and be good stewards of the sport that you love so much. On behalf of co-host Marty Wheeler, I'm Matt Bucher. We want to thank you again for tuning in to the Toledo Track and Trail Podcast, episode number 4.